Again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining today's Process Mining Academy session. In this month's session, we're going to dive into a very interesting use case around security operations and how process mining can be used to drive efficiency, understand where AI agents should be used with security response. Just as a quick reminder, these sessions are for you. They are recorded, so if you couldn't join today, or if you want to refer to these in the future or share this with teammates, you can do so within the Process Mining Academy site. And please use the Q&A within the chat to ask questions as well. Uh, Quick get out of jail slide card. If we talk about roadmap items, please make no buying decisions based on that. We typically do, and because we do appreciate feedback from customers, that feedback absolutely impacts our roadmap, and we really do appreciate it. Okay, so I'm Damien Pascal. I'm one of the outbound product managers for process mining. Joining me today is a special guest, Tim Boswell from our security operations product team. Tim, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Boswell. I'm from our security business unit, mostly around our security operations products like incident response, threat intelligence, and things like that. And thank you very much for letting me join you today. I'm here to kind of just help facilitate, answer any questions specific to our security operations products. And again, thanks for letting me join you today.
And thanks, Tim. And just a quick reminder, your experience in the past, you actually worked in a security operations team, right?
Yes, yes. So my secret identity is I built and ran the security operations center here at ServiceNow a long time ago, and I matured that operation many years. But more importantly, I was customer zero of our security applications, and so for those of you out there who are either using our security products or are supporting security teams who are using our products, I can honestly say I've walked a mile in your shoes.
Yeah, I think that's the important part here. Why does this matter? Why does process mining matter here, and how does this help? So I think this is a great conversation that we can have with in terms of those outcomes. Okay, let's get into it. Oh, quick. Also, a little bit more detail on our product management team from process mining, process, and now task mining. I also have joining me two other folks from my team, Dan Grady, as well as Bilal, from our product success team, just to give it some sense of how large our team is in terms of supporting this. We have a great resource pool of folks who work on this product to improve it throughout this life cycle. All right, our agenda today. We'll go through a quick, process mining 101, what it is for folks who are not familiar with process mining in terms of how it can help. I think it's really important to set that initial floor of what it is. I'm sure we have folks who have not seen this before. Then we will look into diving into how process mining and process intelligence drives efficiency across all the use cases within security operations. Then we'll dive into a demo, specifically showing you how we can use this in very specific use cases. We'll end with questions as well as some resources at the end. All right, let's get into it. All right, so why is process mining? Why is it important? Why do we care? Well, in everything we do and build in life, whether it's a meeting, whether it's a new application, whether it's something we look to facilitate within an organization, we usually have a concept, a design path we're planning for. And if you think about those outcomes, we have usually have a specific outcome in mind, and we are typically measured on that outcome. The reality of those processes may not represent what we intended, sometimes for very good reasons we didn't plan for, we didn't expect, we didn't know would happen. Sometimes they're not good reasons. Sometimes it's just shortcuts people are taking. But all of those things impact with the things we care about in terms of outcomes, an SLA, a KPI we care about, right? So those outcomes directly are impacted by those less than optimal routes to closure. And that becomes a problem from us, right? And because it's hard to figure out where and why they're happening. Typically, these are done manually. I've seen the customers try to do this in spreadsheets and highlighters. They hold workshops with teams of people or get different teams across different, within the organization to figure that out. They hire consultants, right? All of these things are hard to do. They time consuming. And that to me, that's the biggest issue here. If it takes me weeks and months to figure out where the problem is, and to affect an improvement, by the time we figured out what the problem is, the problem could have changed. To me, that's the worst case scenario. We go and start working on a problem, and the problem's changed. So, what we want to do with process mining is give you an easy way. I'm talking now in minutes to figure out and understand how a process is actually running. Now, the great thing here within ServiceNow is you have all that data at your fingertips. This process mining leverages all of the audit logs, the event logs that live within the instance in your data model, right? It's already there. So we're just going to leverage it to give me an easy way to understand how my data and process actually runs. Process mining helps me answer those questions that are typically cannot be answered in a dashboard. Where's my process stuck? Where do my instance go? Why do they go on hold so often? Are we conforming to process principles, right? How many incidents, security incidents can an agent work on? How long have they worked on them? How long, have they been reassigned too often? Things like that. Those kind of questions cannot be answered in a typical dashboard. And that's, really the key value that process mining allows us to have. Because the end result, process mining gives me a way to pipeline improvements in a very easy way. And this is why process mining becomes that why behind any specific KPI we care about. In this case, for security incident or security operations in general, it could be things like, hey, my mean time to close, I need to, and Tim, I'd love your input on this, like specific things that, a CISO cares about in terms of measuring how their operations are running. What keeps them up at night? Having this ability to expose where things are not performing as they should. So as a leader, I know which teams or which areas we need to improve upon.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I remember the previous CISO here at ServiceNow when I was running the SOC. He was constantly asking me, how are we doing? How quickly are we responding to alerts? How quickly are we detecting attacks? And he would ask these, kind of ambiguous questions, but whenever we had data that we could provide, not anecdotes, but actual like data, and then also he would evaluate me on progress. He would say, "Well, how are you doing today? And how much better are you going to do in a month? What kind of improvement are you going to make next month?" Or he would say like, "Okay, this is how you're doing today. How much of an improvement is that from last month?" So that, yeah, metrics and statistics, those are things that we
Yep.
look at all the time and we get evaluated on.
Yeah, and I would imagine, and this is very common for any workflow, really, but I think it's even more important for security operations. If I'm looking at this dashboard, if I'm the CISO and I say, "Hey, my my closed security incidents are trending the wrong way," or my new security incidents are we're spiking up, what's going on here, or my closure rates is trending the wrong way, the first question I'm sure it happens is, okay, why is this happening? And the follow-up to your point is, what are you doing to fix it, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
all
Yes.
right. And this is where, again, where this comes in, where processing helps me answer those questions, which we've been over, and we start looking to improve that process, right? And this is something you're probably already doing. All we're doing here with process mining is giving you a better way, a more data-driven way to help analyze. You're detecting with analytics, with dashboards, with real-time alerts. Process mining fits into that analyze phase to let me understand and find that root cause of what's causing it, right? We're going to use things like process mining. We've also added task mining as another capability. We're not going to focus on that today. That's what the agents are actually doing to do that work in terms of applications. We'll focus on the process today. Now, within process mining, we're going to give you investigative tools to give you that root cause, and we'll go over some of that as well. Now, all of this, as I mentioned earlier, becomes that pipelining methodology into improvements. Help me drive toward that SLA, that KPI care about, and improving that. And guess what? We have a fantastic platform to drive automation and efficiency through things like AI agents, task intelligence, predictive intelligence, a host of different tools. We're going to focus specifically today around AI agents. And we have a host of ones that are built in and part of the platform for security operations to help drive some of those efficiencies as well. Once we get those in place, those improvements in place, guess what? Now it's time to make sure we're getting the value of them as well. We tie into platform capabilities like continuous improvement management to let me monitor and manage those improvements, or automation center to help me scope and manage those automations and measure them continually through platform analytics. This should be an iterative process over time. This is not a one and done. This is something we all know as our compliance laws, rules, business goals change. We need to adjust our process to accommodate them. All right, so let's dive into using process mining to drive that efficiency for security operations. Before we get into that, I thought it was really important, and Tim, I'm going to hand this over to you about what security operations brings to the table here, because I think that's super important for the folks who are new to that as well.
Okay, yeah, so let me take just about 5 minutes to acquaint everyone with our security operations solutions. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who are not yet familiar with our solutions. They're not familiar with our game. So the problem is that security teams are dealing with too much complexity. Complexity that exposes them to risk, and complexity that makes them more vulnerable. So if you go to the next slide, please. How we solve that problem is customers are using ServiceNow as an integration platform to bring all those security tools and all that security data into one place. So we provide those customers with purpose-built security applications. We run those applications on the same platform as IT, CMDB, customer support, GRC, et cetera, but more importantly, on the same platform as everything else on ServiceNow. So we can leverage all that functionality within the ServiceNow platform. And so we provide them with an automation and AI platform. That automation and AI capabilities, that's why customers continue to use ServiceNow for security, why they continue renewing, and why they're so happy with our product. And as we move forward, we're mostly going to be focusing around security incident response. So that's the right side here on this illustration of our portfolio. This is where we stop attacks. This is where we respond to attacks, and this is where we mitigate attacks and stop that bleeding and remediate and kick those attackers out of our network. So if you go to the last slide, please.
Yep.
This automation and AI platform that we're doing security on, that allows customers more quickly and efficiently respond to attacks. It allows them to respond to threats. It allows them to remediate vulnerabilities, but more importantly, it allows them to gain insight into their operations and run their security operations better than the day before. Customers often refer to ServiceNow as their single pane of glass when it comes to security tooling and security operations. I've heard customers refer to it as the aggregator of all of their security tools. And again, this is where they gain that insight. And so ServiceNow is the center of the universe for many of our customers who are trying to reduce that complexity and increase efficiency.
That's great, Tim. And I think this is even why it's even more important. If I think about how we're tying different workflows together, right? Within security operations, having process mining being able to visualize and tie the different components together in a meaningful way to understand how they're operating together, right? Because that outcome's important, right? In terms of making sure we're keeping an organization safe.
Yep.
Okay, so a quick example of that, right, from a security operations use case, and this is a very common one, I think, Tim, right? So having a security incident, hey, we reported a phishing incident, that look, and we've done this internally, where we get a phishing email and I have to report it, right? And it goes through a several phases through its life cycle for security incident. And then there's subtasks. People actually take or workflows that take care of looking at that phishing. Is this real or not? Is this something we need to act on? And that's really important too. Those interactions are important in terms of determining, is this phishing legitimate or not? And do we need to do something about it to mitigate it, right? And that velocity of work is super important. Again, going back to, hey, I'm the CISO. I need to make sure we're keeping the organization safe. I don't want this phishing email penetrating our organization and doing some harm, right? So process mining gives me an easy ability to tie this security incident to understand, hey, did that response task that Damien was working on, did he complete that task in a meaningful way to ensure that we can close that security incident within the time we need to for a phishing event? I think I got that right, Tim? I think
You
I learned a lot from
you
you through
you
this.
did you did get that right. And something else, these are also things that auditors look at. Organizations are constantly audited as far as how well they respond to security incidents and whether or not they're following all the processes and procedures. And so what you just described, it just brought flashbacks back when ServiceNow became FedRAMP certified and DoD certified and those other certifications. And I remember the auditors were coming in and asking to see exactly what you described. And if we had to say, oh, let me get back to you. Let me go do some archaeology and come back to you in a couple weeks. That did not go very well. But if we were able to quickly produce that within ServiceNow, then that audit went very smoothly and ended very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not about just about efficiency, it's also about compliance, right? And I think that's
Yep.
really important.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So, what is process mining? What does it do for us for security incidents in general, right? It allows us to visualize those security incidents, right? Expose those bottlenecks, right? We'll go through some of this in the demo. Helps us validate some of the automations we may already have in place, including playbooks, right? And also within the Zurich release, and we'll demo in the Zurich release just to be clear to everyone. We'll show you how you can even create playbooks directly from process mining for security incidents. Really great way to drive further automation and consistency for how you can close maybe troublesome security incidents that in the past have been, not consistent in the way we close them, right? So really great way to help drive those SLAs in a way that's meaningful. The other key thing too, and I mentioned in that very first slide and use case, the ability of understanding how those response tasks are impacting my security incidents. One of the great things that process mining brings to the table is the ability to do what we call multi-dimensional analysis, which we're looking at not just one process, but multiple downstream, upstream components of a workflow. In this case, for a security incident, hey, I'd like to know the velocity of work and quality of the work of the security response tasks that are supporting my security incidents. Where are we slowing down? Where are we causing some bottlenecks, right? Can we maybe close those response tasks in a more meaningful, better, more efficient manner? And again, this is where potentially where AI agents can help a lot. One of the other key things with process mining is, okay, well, that's great. How about surfacing, improvement opportunities? Give me some evidence of where we're having some issues. And this is something that process mining brings to the table as well. And I'll show you some examples of that. We have some that are out of the box for security incident. We have content packs for lots of use cases, including security incident. They're meant to be starting points, and I'll show you some examples of that as well. But to be easily be able to detect bottlenecks for, how are the state of the security incident, or even other things I care about, maybe the category or the assignment group changing, or even the work that's being assigned to an individual person. All of those things could be detected as bottlenecks as well. I did want to surface some common use cases. I think this is important. It's not specific to security incident, but it's super important to get, I feel, the creative juices flowing for everyone who is in security operations. How can process mining help us answer specific questions? And these are a common list we get into and we see with every customer. That very first one, who's holding on to a piece of work, right? Security incident, a response task. I need to know which assignment group are assigned to or which team are holding on to a piece of work. And not only that, I need to know why, right? So again, the outcome of all of these should be what can I do to mitigate or improve them, right? Multi-hop, work that's being reassigned multiple times or going back into work in progress too many times. I love that very last one, automation opportunities, showing me evidence of security incidents are taking perhaps a very short amount of time to close, right? Maybe we can do something to, automate them using an AI agent or some other automation where I don't have to have a person actually touch them. And I think this is really important, Tim. If I remember our discussions earlier, where security incidents, we're getting them into hundreds, if not thousands, especially if you think about like phishing emails or some of these other ones that are automated from the different systems that are funneling into ServiceNow as an aggregator. A lot of noise, right? So if we can quickly understand where we can automate some of that and take some of that load off of the security operations team, that's a huge win.
Yeah, for sure. We have some of our larger customers use ServiceNow and they process hundreds of millions of vulnerabilities per month on ServiceNow. They deal with thousands of attacks per day using ServiceNow and respond to those attacks using ServiceNow. But one of the reasons why they love ServiceNow is for those automation opportunities. There's no way they can manually keep up with everything. They can't hire their way out of the problem, but they can automate their way out of the problem.
Yeah, awesome. As I mentioned earlier, we do have an ability to detect issues through an improvement opportunities, and we have a great engine within process mining to expose those things. And we have two types: automated and pattern based, and rule based. And those automated ones are just simple. Hey, I want to know when work is ping pong between two different states or two different teams. You see examples of these. We have a guided setup to get those to help customers build those. Again, we do have ones that are out of the box for security incident and other use cases. Those are meant to be starting points. You can change and adjust those. You can add ones that are specific to your organization as well. For example, a rule-based one could be, hey, I need to know when a phishing email coming in from this location is, it's considered high priority. I need to know when if it's not work in progress within 30 minutes or it's not closed within an hour. That should be raised as an improvement opportunity. So you can be very explicit and programmatic based on things that you care about. And those that get exposed, and I'll show you this in the demo as improvement opportunities. Everyone loves to see the process map. I love looking at these first because it can expose based on inefficiency time and number of records, how impactful an improvement opportunity are. What I really love about this is this. It allows a team to quickly prioritize what I need to be working on, right? And again, give me an ability to start investigating very, very quickly. So one of the key things of process mining, as I mentioned earlier, is to allow you to pipeline into improvements. And one of those improvements, and we all know this, is around using AI. Every customer I've talked to over the past year is on a different level of maturity and where they are in their AI journey. It's something we're all thinking about and concerned about and want to know what we can do more. Process mining should be part of that journey. Why? Well, it can help expose and find where jobs for our AI agents should live. And security incident is just another use case where this makes a lot of sense. As I mentioned earlier, hey, I want to know when security incidents take less than 15 minutes to close. Uh, those should be identified as potential AI agent opportunities. There's lots of other techniques you can use for process mining to leverage that as well. Once I put those AI agents to work, we need to know and make sure those AI agents are working as expected and in providing the improvement we want. This is something we can do in process mining as well and understand that improvement after it's been deployed. I will also mention again a little bit of a roadmap item that's coming out later on as our ability to also start analyzing those AI agents themselves, make sure they're operating the way we want. Lastly, uh, from a governance perspective, and this is also something that's very top of mind for all of our customers, and managing those AI assets is super important. Why we don't want to expose any undue risk to an organization. Using AI control tower that lives within process mining also gives me an opportunity to manage those AI assets in a meaningful way to have a governance layer, right? And that's really important. Process mining can be layered on top of AI control tower to give me an easy way to ensure that the governance is not, uh, you know, providing any sort of slowdown in terms of impacting our ability to release AI agents in a meaningful way to align to business priorities. So a great way to leverage process mining across the entire life cycle of your AI agent. Tim, this is, I think, a quick.
Yeah. Yeah, so we provide a lot of AI agents already out of the box, pre-configured, ready to go, pre-trained, ready to go. I think today we're just going to be focusing on shift handover and the metrics one and maybe a couple others. But the idea here is again very similar to when I spoke earlier. Just want to make you acquainted with what we provide out of the box, but these use cases, these AI agents that we've provided today, these are use cases that our customers have provided us. We get together with our customers, our security customers, and the PAC and at Knowledge and other places, and we have them vote and we ask them what are some use cases and so that's what we release. So we don't just kind of dream up and think like, oh, I hope somebody uses this and finds it useful. But then also we do have a lot of customers and a lot of partners who are out there building AI agents specific for their use cases. So that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And this is what's available today and a little bit of roadmap where you see Q4 and beyond, of course, safe harbor. But again, what we're going to be talking about today is that incident resolver and the handover and I think maybe the metrics. But it just these are some of the use cases that we provide ready to go out of the box and just to give you an idea of what we have in our portfolio.
Yeah, again, this to me gives an easy opportunity for customers to quickly, again, to drive some of those impactful opportunities to automate once we've identified those pain points within process mining, right? To me, this is the easy path, right? Could a customer also build their own? Absolutely. But this, to me, these out-of-the-box AI agents provide that easy opportunity to get, value very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I will tell you, like for example, that shift handover agent, customers told us that before we made this available to them, it could take them anywhere from 5 minutes to 2 hours to do that shift handover or to hand over even just one incident because there's so much back and forth. Oh, what did you do? Okay, well, what do you need me to do when I'm coming on shift and did you think to look at that and do I need to look at this? The customers have said that they've been able to get that down to just a few minutes by using our Gen AI and agentic AI capabilities to help
Yep.
them do that handover and streamline and make that more efficient.
Yeah, and I'll show an example of where that could be leveraged within process mining as well. So I thought it was good to kind of show some of these outcomes as we look at how we're going to use process mining to identify some of these inefficiencies, right? Or these compliance or velocity issues that we're looking to improve within security operations.
Yeah, and I think on the next slide, I think we actually have some stats, and these are actual statistics and metrics that we've collected from our customers who have adopted these solutions, as well as our own internal security organization. Because, like I mentioned at the beginning, we are customer zero
Yep.
within our security operations center. We do use these products, so just to give you an idea that we are seeing real outcomes.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Tim. All right. So I'm going to switch over for a moment. So I'm going to stop sharing. Switch over, share, and we'll go to our. All right. Everyone should see my browser. And Tim, you can see it, right?
Yes, yes, I could see it.
Okay. All right. I love starting a a demo like this in analytics. And specifically, this is one, a CISO reporting overview that lives in security incident response workspace. And I like this one because if I'm a CISO or a leader within the SecOps team, understanding how our security operations are running are super important. How it's trending, how many incidents we're resolving, or is our velocity and quality what it should be? And once we start looking at and seeing things we don't like, we need to start figuring out why. Right, and this is really important. And once we start diving into that data, we can easily pivot into the process mining workspace to start understanding how that process is running. And I'll show you an example, assuming we have enough time, how easy it is to create a project. One of the key things about process mining, it is super simple to use. You don't have to be a data scientist to use this. To create one of these takes literally minutes to run. In this scenario, what I did was analyze security incidents, right? This is again, the data lives in your incident in your instance. All that audit data is there. In this case, I looked at all my closed incidents specifically for a certain number of assignment groups. I'm looking at 3,500 security incidents, right, over the past number of months. Variance, what does that mean? Well, that means I have 16 different routes to closure for my 3,500 incidents. Now, I will preface all of this. My demo data isn't the greatest. That number is fairly low. In your environment, that number will probably be a lot higher. It's indicative of potential, a lot of, if you have a lot of variance or routes to closure, that may show that you have a lot of deviations from, your optimal path, which may not represent a good thing. We also show that our average duration is 5 days. We also notice a standard deviation of 40 days, which tells me, hey, you're not very consistent. And consistency is something every leader wants, right? In terms of understanding how work is progressing from start to finish. So I need to reduce this. This is really not good either. I want to be more consistent, make sure we're really closer to this 5 day average across across all of my security incidents. And we can see that in our process overview. Now, everyone loves to see the process map, as I mentioned earlier, right away. I love starting here in a summary insights. There's a good reason for that. First of all, we like to see some good stats. Our average time to completion of records over time. This one is interesting, distribution of records by time to completion. So yeah, most of these are one day. Most of these are in the 4 to 5 days. But boy, do I have some that are going up to 241. They're way out there, right? Again, demo data isn't great, but you can see this is where my standard deviation is causing me some problems. As I scroll down, to me, this is where the magic happens. Those improvement opportunities I mentioned earlier. We have, as I mentioned, a ton that are out of the box. We also have ones that I built here very easily as well. And we put them in different categories: performance, automation, quality, and conformance. And again, you can decide which category they're in. We also give some metrics around these as well. But to me, I love scrolling to the bottom and starting understanding where we're exposing some improvement opportunities right away. And again, what I mentioned earlier, we prioritize these based on the things we care about: the number of records, the total inefficiency. So what does this mean? So the very first one is reassignment. I have security incidents that have at least two or assignment group changes. And I'm okay with one, but two is not great, right? That's showing that we're not conforming to what I expect or want to happen. How many records? Well, out of my 3,500, I have 37% of them, 1,291. It's an average of 5 days time in that reassignment, right? So it's really impacting our closure. And there's a total of 16 years of time packaged up in those 37% of my incidents. How are we getting to that number? It's simple math. It's the 5 days times the 1291. So, this can easily help me prioritize what I should be working on as an improvement. And by the way, we can tie these to KPIs you have and you that are using, whether they're out of the box or something that's custom to your organization. To me, this is the why I care. My reassignment is directly impacting my average duration for security instance and average time to eradicate. All right, I need to do something about this. This is something we really care about. And in fact, we have perhaps a goal within the organization to reduce this. And right from here, we can take action. We can decide to, hey, let's just look at these 1,291 in the analyst workbench and that process map. Can we also start deciding, hey, can we take a look at the records? I certainly don't want to look at 1,291 records, but we also have the opportunity of using machine learning to analyze the data within those incidents. Uh, for example, and we have a couple here, things like analyzing the short description or description of those incidents, using cluster analysis to give me what kind of incidents were reassigned more than two times. We also have root cause analysis providing the evidence, the key themes that are causing those reassignments. In this case, well, who are the prime offender? Well, it's SRT L2. They are 494 times more likely than any other assignment group to be reassigned more than two times. Right? Again, giving you key evidence, and you can decide what the contributing factors are for any one of these as well. You notice I have a couple of different tabs here, new, under review, and archived. This gives me an easy way to decide, hey, I need to prioritize these, and it's an easy way to govern these. Well, I was like, yeah, maybe this is the one I want to start working on. I can put it into review, and we can say, well, okay, here are the three out of the 20, five I had initially that I want to start prioritizing. We can start deciding to work on those right from here. Once we start doing that, we can start diving into, and again, this is a Zurich release. This may look a little different if you're in Yokohama or Xanadu. We do have a great session on what's new in Zurich. If you're would like an update on that, that's recorded on the Process Mining Academy as well. One new thing we added in Zurich is this opportunity detail, so we can get more detail on the impact of this, in this case, long resolution time. So here's an example of that. And one of the great things in the Zurich release, we're continuing to leverage AI to help the security and the process owners, security incident owners and process owners to understand the impact of this improvement. In this case, we're looking at our records that went from draft to analysis that took us too long, right? It's taking us an average of 5 days. We've identified this as an opportunity. And we can see all those ones we saw earlier, they're all here. I have two under review. I have 23 more, those like we saw earlier. So in this draft to review, it's taking 5 days. These are outliers. It's causing us some headaches, right? In fact, we saw there's 7 years of total inefficiency wrapped up in here. Not great. It's only 15%, but it's a big impact, right? So from here, we can get some more detail. And one of the new ones is this highlights using Now Assist. It helps me summarize all the contributing factors that are causing this and impacting or, this slow you transition from draft to analysis. In fact, I see, hey, phishing category is 47 times more likely in records from slow transition for draft to analysis. So this is causing us some issues to getting from draft to analysis. Now, what's going on there, right? So we have an issue with phishing here. We can also look at trends on this data set as well, and even breakdowns, right? Being able to slice and dice, which sources are these coming from? Self-service, email, which assignment groups, which priority, right? Again, you get to choose what these are, and as expected, most of these are phishing, right? I do have some malicious code activity, and we can see the duration as well. All right, so let's dive into the analyst workbench. Oh, by the way, and I kind of showed this earlier, we can also investigate from here as well. I could look at the records. Perhaps that's a good use, especially if it's a smaller data set. We can also use machine learning to understand, well, what kind of security incidents took a long time, this 5 days from draft to analysis. This gives me a quick analysis. Again, in this case, using the short description, you can decide to use a description as well. And as expected, I'm seeing a lot of phishing, like 450 out of my 528 have suspected phishing. We also have some vulnerability in an application as well. Again, this is using machine learning to expose that. So now we're going to dive into the analyst workbench, the process map that everyone loves to come to see, right? In this case, we're going to see out of the box about 20% of all of the connections, which means, there's 16 different routes. We're seeing 20% of them now. So not a lot of complexity. And again, with my demo data, I don't have a lot of complexity here. If I move this out to, let's say, 65%, you'll see more of those, what we call the spaghetti map, right? Different routes to closure. We also notice we're looking at two different things changing through the life cycle of a security incident, both the state and the assignment group. That's what I chose when I built this. You can decide to add other ones too. Maybe I care about the priority or category changing. It's whatever changes within the lifecycle of the workflow. These are the two I changed. These are pretty common ones. But in this case, I really want to focus just on the state, and I can do that here. And I'll focus just on the state for a moment, and I want to start looking at how work is progressing from start to finish. And an easy way to start seeing is it conforming, number one, to what I expect. And we see our, draft to analysis to contain, to eradicate, all the things you come to expect in the security incident process. As I mentioned earlier, we also have the ability of using breakdowns to slice and dice how I want to view this data as well. And again, you get to choose what this is. In this case, I have source, I have close code, I have assignment group, category, all of these things. I thought close code was an interesting one because one of the use case for AI agent is to start looking at and dealing with phishing emails in a more efficient way. False positives is something we don't want to spend time on. So easy way to slice and dice our data very easily. Another great tool besides the improvement opportunities is this capability, bottleneck analysis, giving us an easy way to expose inefficiencies in our process for any of the things we care about changing. Since we're only focused right now on state, I'm only going to see the state transitions. And this will show me, okay, well, based on my unique security incidents, my unique occurrences, I have 3,500 going from state to analysis. It's taking an average of 3 days. I might be okay with that, right? But there are 24 years wrapped up in those 35 incidents taking 3 days. Maybe we can do better getting from draft to analysis. Maybe this is a routing issue. Maybe this could be a categorization or even a workload issue we can deal with. Each one of these, by the way, is a filter. If I just want to dive into just my security instance that went from draft to analysis, I can do that right from here, click on it, and build a view just like that. Very simple. Now, one of the ones I did want to focus on is, some of the ones that are the most impactful. I can sort this by unique occurrences to show me the biggest bucket of incidents. I want to look at the ones that are providing the most duration, right? The biggest gaps, if you will, right? So that 24 years is our biggest one. Analysis that contained is 2,300 security instances that did this transition, taking an average of 2 days. Which ones are most problematic? Analysis to review, right? 210, it's taking 2 weeks. There's 70 years here. Maybe I'm not okay with that 2 weeks, right? It really depends on what you care about. So I can sort this by whatever I want. Maybe my average duration is what I really care about. This analysis to review is the one that is really the most problematic. Simple way to analyze this. And we can do the same thing for assignment groups very easily as well, showing us our transitions between different assignment groups very easily in terms of how work is being routed and those, as Tim mentioned, those shift handovers, and understanding how are those transitions happening. Where are we taking the most amount of time? Well, SRT to SRT EMEA, it's taking an average of 5 days for that transition. Not good, right? Total of 9 years of time in that transition from assignment group to assignment group. Can we do better there? All right. So let's go back to state for a moment. I want to show a few more things in terms of how you can leverage this process map. Again, it's not just a static map. It's something you can and should interact with very easily. I'm going to bring this up to 50% and give you some examples of that very easily. So one of the first things I notice, and I look at this map, I always like to look at work that is taking the optimal path, or what I could perceive as the optimal path, and look at areas where maybe it's not good, right? And I see one example of that. I see 1,100 of my security instances being canceled, and I'm okay with that. But I want to make sure we do that in a very optimal, right, efficient way. I want to get those canceled as quickly as possible and get them off people's desks. And one of the things I notice is I have 924 going from analysis to canceled, taking 2 days. Certainly, that's not great. I'd love to reduce that number. It's a lot of time there wrapped up in those canceled incidents that we need to reduce. And one of the things I noticed, if I click on this transition, each one of these things is something you can drill into. I notice I have a couple of things here. I have 924 security incidents, and in Zurich we have the ability to also discover the number of touch points, which you decide what a touch point is. Maybe it's creating a work note, maybe it's changing an assignment group or assigned to. We're averaging about one touch point per transition. That's not terrible. But this 5 years of time in that transition for these 924 security incidents, certainly we'd like to reduce that. Within the histogram, we can get an idea of both the duration and if we have any repetitions. Now, I don't have any repetitions, so that's good, but this duration is really giving me some pause. Most of these are taking less than 12 hours, but I have a bunch that are taking days, up to 5 days, 6 days that are closed, that are taking to transfer to canceled. We can start diving into all of the ones that perhaps I find not good, right? So I can apply filter on all of the ones that are taking more than 12 hours right from here and focus on just on those very easily. Again, a simple way to start exposing problematic routes to closure. And right from here, we can start investigating similarly like we saw earlier in our in the improvement opportunities. We can show the records. Certainly, that might be something I may want to do, but within the transitions between nodes, we can also expose and analyze the work notes. Now, this is a fantastic way to leverage unstructured data that lives in those security incidents to give me evidence of why did it take 2 days, number one, and why do we have so many canceled. And right from here, we're going to use Now Assist to summarize this and give me some evidence of, in human readable language, of why this happened. Right. And we can see also the number of affected records. There's 460 of those 900 or so security incidents due to, and tell me exactly why they were canceled. Again, once I have this information, I can easily say, you know what? We have a great AI agent that can deal with this. Why aren't we deploying that AI agent start dealing with these canceled security incidents? This way we don't have this 2 day of transition anymore. These could be canceled hopefully within seconds or if not minutes. Tim, I wanted to give you a second just to comment on that because I tend to not give you enough time.
Now, you know what? You are covering it perfectly on that topic. I really don't have a whole lot to add because you are
Yeah.
just so spot on right now.
Awesome. All right, great. And again, the other key thing is, understanding, I think if I'm a security operations team, we're using perhaps the NIST structure. If you're not familiar with the NIST structure, I've learned about this myself, where we're going through specific steps to close a security incident from this analysis, contain, eradicate. If we're missing a step, right, going back to, hey, we get audited, we need to make sure that we go through this contain phase, right? That's really important. I need to know when we don't go through contain or eradicate. That's really important. And we notice, hey, I have analysis going straight to review. Why is that happening? It's taking 2 weeks, and I need to figure out, well, what's going on there? Again, root cause analysis is a great way to say, well, who's causing this, right? Again, I'm just using an assignment group here, but it's the SRT team that's doing this, right? We can easily start analyzing. Again, I could run the analysis on the short description to get an idea what kind of incidents are skipping my contain and eradicate. Now, one of the other key things I did want to point out is the ability to hone in on phishing email specifically and understand where we can expose and leverage that AI agent very easily. And again, understanding. Let's look at the close code for a moment. Actually, no, category, right? So phishing. Here are all my phishing security incidents. It's 1,600 out of my 3,500. It's taking a week and 20 hours to close. Let's just focus on those for a minute. Actually, I have a filter set based on those. Let's clear that. And let's go to my phishing, right? So here are all my 1,600 out of my 3,500 security incidents, which is taking a week and 20 hours to close. Not great. And once I focus on those, I want to start looking some of the other aspects of these phishing emails. My sources, and I like to look at close code. That's the important one. And my goodness, this is what really bothers me. This 972 phishing emails were taking a week, right, to close. And that's certainly not great, right? So we need to do better here. And that's something we can easily identify using process mining. It's like, okay, well, now that we know this, right? Let's look at those, all of my security incidents that are false positive. Can we start analyzing these? Absolutely. Let's understand all the details around these false positives so we can get some, an improvement in place. That AI agent that we have that's out of the box. So you can see some, some clear information here based on the short description or description. You get to decide that again, or even start investigating, where do these come from? What category, all of those things. Once we understand that, what's the next phase? Well, the next one it really is, hey, let's collaborate. Let's start looking at, um, you know, prioritizing this as an improvement. And we may decide, hey, this is really bad, and I want to get the CISO on board. So I'm going to say, hey, CISO, we need to deploy that AI agent for phishing. Now, the CISO will get a link to this process analysis as well as a snapshot of this. So he's going to see, or she, that, okay, we have a ton of false positives here. Yeah, I agree. We should do this. What's the next step? Well, right from here, we can do one of two things. We can leverage continual improvement management, create a record where we can take the context of this improvement or this finding and start prioritizing it and have response tasks, right? Or an AI agent. We could also leverage automation request that ties into Automation Center to start scoping and building and t-shirt sizing and an automation request, which could be an AI agent that we have either to build or something that's out of the box. Really easy way to do that. One other thing I did want to point out, another improvement could be, hey, you know what? Let's look at some of the different routes to closure. Remember, we talked about optimal paths and suboptimal paths. So this is where the variants come into play, the different routes. So most of my incidents are, let's see, our biggest one, we're having 7 steps. You can see them at the bottom. SRT, draft, analysis, cancel, closed, right? Not bad. We also can point out the less than optimal ones. I clicked on my steps. Let's look at the ones that have the most steps. I have one that had 13. I have 265 that have 12. You notice it's going back into contain, to analysis, to review. It's jumping around. Not great, right? I want to provide a playbook for perhaps this one that I find to be not good, right? It's something we need to account for. And in Zurich release, we have an ability to create a playbook from this specifically. Maybe I want to be able to do an eradicate in a more efficient manner, right? So I can literally build a process analysis or playbook right from here. It'll take this information using Now Assist and create a playbook for you. You can see some examples right from here. All right. So once we've deployed that process improvement, one of the other key things we can also do is understand its impact. And we can do that from our compare, right? And this is really important as well because we want to make sure that improvement is giving us all the things we need in terms of value. And if we click on the compare, and I'm going to clear everything, which I did, I'm going to compare, and you can see we have an ability to go back in time. Today's the 19th, actually today's the 20th. I also did some back on the 14th. So maybe I want to compare before my change that I deployed for my AI agent. And I'll make that comparison. Oh, hold on. And once I have that comparison, and we have the 14th, we have the 19th. And now I can have this comparison statistic. So it gives me an ability to see, hey, did we get better? And right from here, I can see, okay, number of records. So today we've actually closed more records, so our velocity got better. Our variants haven't changed, so our complexity stayed the same, but our average duration went up. It actually got worse. Okay, that's not good. We need to iterate on that improvement. But our average deviation got worse as well. Okay, we need to make a change. That improvement needs to. So this is a great way to validate that our improvement have the impact we want. And if not, we need to go back to the drawing board or making a change to that improvement to ensure it's giving us the value we want. So an easy way to get that done. All right, so I know we're running out of time. I did want to give you and end with one more thing. So we started in the dashboard. Now, remember that dashboard, we had good stats. Having the ability of taking that process analysis we mentioned earlier is also important, right? And having, exposing, and democratizing that information to stakeholders, process owners, is now easily done. And this is an example of that. I took that same dashboard. Now I have that process for my security incident workflow that is now showing how it's impacting my average time to identify or average time to contain. Here's my 2 days to get to contain. Oh, okay, it's taking us an average of 2 days. I can do a work note analysis right from here and arm the person that cares about this workflow to show, okay, here's why it's taking 2 days to go from analysis to contain. Great way to drive that efficiency. And once we get that done, of course, we can make that decision, hey, I need to know more so we can drive an improvement. Easy way to get that done. And I know we're running out of time. I did want to just show one more thing before we go because I didn't have time to show this earlier. Having the ability to tie together both upstream and downstream use cases. Remember, we showed security incident. Now having the ability of showing those response tasks impacting it. Again, great way to expose, hey, it's taking me, from my analysis phase to a response task, it's taking us 25 minutes. I have 35 response tasks for my analysis here, right? So a great way to expose and understand and even expose, hey, are we meeting our SLAs? I have, in this case, 55 security incidents that breached my task SLA, right? So great way to start looking at investigating those security incidents that are not conforming to my required performance. And one last thing, I apologize. I do want to show this. How easy is it to build? It's super simple. I'm going to do a quick test. Security incidents. We just add. All we're going to do is show the security incident. There's my table. Again, this will use the roles that you have. We hit create project. Now all we do is scope it. Which data do I care about from last month? All the things you care about. All the filters are there for you if you're used to that. Activities, I automatically have being added for this use case, state and assignment group, but you can add anything I care about. I have recommended fields that you can conform to, as well as anything within the table. Breakdowns, similarly, you can choose things, any field on the table. I have a couple here that I have as default. And then you can add metrics in the Zurich release. We can start tracking touch points and idle time as well. And then we just add those improvement detectors. That's it. This is all we have to do to create a project. We can add from the library. Those are the ones that are in our content pack, or you can create new ones as well. And we're done. That was the entire thing to create a process analysis. And we go ahead and mine it. All right. I know we're running out of time. I do want to end with a couple of resources and make sure we're getting to the Q&A as well. Go back to, all right. How are we doing Q&A?
A couple of questions came in. One was about this being available in PDIs,
Ah,
which I still don't believe that the PDIs or personal development instances are connected to the ML trainers.
right.
The best course of action is to, if you, well, you're going to cover one of them now, but if you're interested in playing around with process mining on your own, one thing you could do is go to ServiceNow University. Another is what Damien's going to share here.
Right. Yeah, so one of the things I want to make sure everyone knows is we all have access in every customer instance as of the Xanadu release. And we added more use cases in Yokohama evaluation projects. And you can see the three that are available in Yokohama and Zurich for incident, HR case, and customer case. If you want to test security incident, you can do that also in a subprod instance very easily, as long as you have the audit logs cloned down with it as well. So even if you don't have security incident in your evaluation project today, which we're planning to do in the future as a safe harbor, but you can do that in your subprod as well. So a great way to start testing that very easily. It allows you to test up to the last week's worth of data, up to 3,600 records in your production environment. And it's simple. We have improvement opportunities that are built into that. They're curated. You cannot change them, but they're meant to provide easy value very quickly. And we have a ton of content out there and how to use those evaluation projects to provide things like, hey, show me where we can identify where AI agents should live, or multi-hop, or even idle time very easily. I'll end with, we have a ton of resources out there for process mining. There's on-demand training, there's a fundamentals class, and even a more deep dive session now that's available. We also have, obviously, this Process Mining Academy sessions. We have the use case series that were recorded, as well as monthly office hours. So rich resources for you to have for process mining. We have all of these recorded as well, so you can leverage these in the future. I want to thank everyone. Any last questions that are out there, please, before we end, I want to make sure we have them all covered.
Damien, there was one question that came in from a very good friend of the process mining family around specifically around minimum number of records per
Ah,
cluster in the cluster definitions.
yes.
And I answered it there, but just to kind of for everyone else, when Damien was doing the clustering, every process configuration or every table that you're going to be mining, there's a solution definition for clustering in which you can set some values, what fields you want to use in the clustering. One of those values that you set on that definition is the minimum number of records to include in a cluster. There's no real guidance, I would say, based on the volume of data that you're mining for a specific workflow and are typically included in projects for that workflow, will dictate what you set that. But from a personal preference perspective, I always like to keep that minimum number of records low. And the reason being, if you think about when you're going to be applying clustering, it's typically kind of going to be for that last mile analysis. As you saw Damien do today, he was using improvement opportunities to start his journey with the data. That narrowed the data set down. And then he would use some breakdowns to further narrow the data set down. And then he would use a transition filter to further narrow the data set down. Because you're going to be applying clustering towards the end of all that filtering and narrowing, like the last mile of the conversation, if you have the minimum number of clustering records too high, it's less likely that you're going to get results. You're often going to be applying the clustering on a smaller set of data. So it's safer to keep it low just to get results.
Yeah.
If you set it too high, you're going to hit a wall.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Dan. It's a great question. Also wanted to share with everyone the upcoming sessions. We do have two more in December before the end of the year. One on how to use process mining with digital release and DevOps that I'll be doing, and one that my peer, Rosman Parpia, will be doing around a hot topic around how to use process mining with software and hardware asset management. Great. Thank you, everyone, and appreciate you, Tim, for collaborating.
Yeah, thanks for letting me join you.